Hello, and welcome to Positive Talk with Kari. This morning is going to be a little bit different. We are going to have a guest on with me this morning. So before she jumps on, I just wanted to talk a little bit about things that I am thankful for. And I am thankful for every one of you that joined me on Positive Talk with Kari. Secondly, I am thankful for the person that's going to be joining me, Tammy Waldron. She is an amazing friend, and I just love having her as a friend. And then third, I'm thankful for today. I'm thankful being able to wake up and have a new day and to be able to start new. And that is going to be things that I'm going to focus on today. So what are you going to focus on today? Please share. So up next, we are going to talk with Tammy Waldron. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Positive Talk with Kari, your total wellness, focusing on your mind, your body, and your soul. Today with us today, we have Tammy Waldron, one of my really good friends, and we are so lucky to have her join us. She actually works in the mental health field and works with children. And so one of the things that we've been talking about is cognitive distortions. She actually brought this topic to me. And as we were talking about it, I thought this would be a great discussion for us to present to you guys. So Tammy, help me understand a little bit about what was it about this that came to mind when we discussed coming on to Positive Talk with Kari?
Well, this was one of the books. Here's the book. It's called The Feeling Good Handbook. And I was given this book or told to read this book in college. And as I was reading this book, it just hit me in college how many of these things I did. And it gave me a good way of kind of looking at the way I think, the way I do things, and whether that was helpful or not to me. So I really loved this book for that reason. So there are about 10 different distortions, and we're going to go through about 4 today. Is that what we were talking about? Okay.
Yeah, 4.
4 of them. So we're going to go through 4. So this book that I'm telling you about is by David Burns and Beck. And so this book is more kind of cognitive behavioral therapy type book. That's what kind of book it is. So when you look at this book, if you're thinking of going to a counselor, this might be a book that they would give you, or they would kind of really work on maybe kind of these distortions and different ways of thinking. So whether you're going to a counselor or not, this is a good book to kind of just read through and maybe even bring up in your sessions or not, or whatever. But I thought it might be helpful to others. So, all right.
When we
you want to go over yours first?
Yeah, so when we were talking about it, you mentioned to me this book, first of all, which I thought was really great. And I know that it's originally was designed as a self-help book. And so I thought that was very important to know, is that, a lot of what is in this book is things to really help you in different stages of your life and different things that go through. Now, when speaking about cognitive distortions, in our discussion, so my understanding of this, and you tell me if I'm right, so my understanding of this is that cognitive distortions, we tend to go with what our brain tells us to do, okay? And which can be good, and can be bad in some situations. But our brain has been wired to kind of alert us of like danger and different situations in our life, helps us to be attracted to a potential mate, things like that. Now, one of the things that our brains can do based on situations that we've gone through can turn to a faulty or non-helpful way of thinking. Mm-hmm. And that is what these cognitive distortions identify, are the different types of ways that the faulty ways that it turns your brain, basically. Is that correct?
Yes, that is exactly correct. And we'll read through the list and we'll go over 4 of them, although there's 10. but I guarantee you, you're going to find yourself in this book. Everyone finds themselves at least a little in this book. So the two that I picked were Discounting the Positives. This one's one that affects me, and this one really gets to me. And the other one I picked was Emotional Reasoning. So let me go through and I will kind of read you from the book what Discounting the Positives is, and then I'll read you what Emotional Reasoning is. Okay. So Discounting the Positives is that you reject positive experiences by insisting that they don't count. If you do a good job, you may tell yourself it wasn't good enough, or that anyone could have done that as well. Discounting the positives takes the joy out of your life and makes you feel inadequate and unrewarded. Or so-and-so did it better, so obviously it doesn't matter, right? So that's the kind of thing that we do to ourselves as well. Yeah, I walked a mile, but so-and-so over there walked 10, so obviously my mile is nothing, right? That's what we do. The other one is Emotional Reasoning, and this is another one that hits me. You assume that your negative emotions necessarily reflect the way things really are. I feel terrified about going on an airplane, so therefore it must be dangerous to fly. Or I feel guilty, therefore I must be a rotten person. I feel angry. This proves that I'm being treated unfairly because I'm feeling angry. Oh. Or I feel inferior. This means I'm a second-rate person. Or I'm hopeless. This must mean I'm really hopeless. Or my personal favorite is, I feel like I'm fat, so therefore I must be fat, but I'm not. So we all do these. So those were kind of my examples of what, those are the two that hit me the hardest. So Kari, what were your two?
So my two, and I have to agree with what you first said, is that when you read through the list, you get these aha moments. You're like, wow, that's me, that's me, that's me. There are so many of these, and I would really say that majority of these at one point in my life, yes, I can identify with. But the ones that stuck out the most, the one was mental filter. And this is, you pick out a single negative detail and dwell on it exclusively so that your vision of all of reality becomes darkened, like the drop of ink that discolors a beaker of water. Example, you receive many positive comments about your presentation to a group of associates at work, but one of them says something mildly critical. You obsess about his reaction for days and ignore all the positive feedback. I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, that's me. And it's funny because this is something that I have found myself doing at work. I have found myself doing at home. I have found myself, just even being out in public and not knowing people, just the reaction I get, I'm automatically discounting everything that I'm doing. And I focus on that one thing because it wasn't what I expected to hear.
It wasn't the picture in your head of what you expected.
Yeah, exactly. So that one was very, very strong with me. The other one is the should comments. Now, I mentioned to you, when I first read this, the first thing that came to mind was my mother.
We all have our mother here.
My mom used to always say, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah, okay. And the reason I say that too is because my mother is one of the most positive people I've known in my life. And so she would always say, shoulda, coulda, woulda, let's just continue. It's like, don't worry about it. And I'd be like, but, and all these things. But let me read this. So should statements. You tell yourself that things should be the way you hoped or expected them to be. After playing a difficult piece on the piano, a gifted pianist told herself, I shouldn't have made all those mistakes. This made her feel so disgusted that she quit practicing for several days. Must, oughts, and have tos are similar offenders. Should statements that are directed against yourself led to guilt and frustration. Should statements that are directed against other people or the world in general led to anger and frustration. He shouldn't be so stubborn. Many people try to motivate themselves with shoulds and shouldn'ts as if they were delinquents who had to be punished before they could be expected to do anything. I shouldn't eat that donut. This usually doesn't work because all these shoulds and musts make you feel rebellious, and you get the urge to do just the opposite. Dr. Albert Ellis has called this the masturbations. Okay, called it a masturbation.
Masturbation.
All right, that's a new one for me. I call it the shouldly approach to life. And again, when I read this one, I mean, there's so many times that, you know, I sit there and say, I shouldn't do this, or, you know, I shouldn't do that, or, you know, something like that. And it just, I find that I miss out on things in life when I do that too. But also it's kind of a way of saying to myself, you can't do it. So don't do it. You know, it reminds me of, I'm not one that is a fan of failure. I'll openly admit that. I don't like to fail. And so I used to, especially as a kid, I was painfully shy. But I realized why I was so shy. And I was so shy to do things because I didn't want to fail. And I didn't want to fail in front of people. So it always, you know, I don't want to have to say, well, I should have done it this way or I should have done it that way. I mean, I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
Not down. And that didn't help out at all either. So, but that one came to mind.
Then you get a whole new set of shoulds. Oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. And you know what should actually means when you say should? If you're talking about someone else or even yourself, shame on them for not doing what they should be doing, which also means shame. I should be working out every day. What I'm really saying is shame on me for not working out every day. Well, that makes me not want to work out every day because if I don't, then I get shamed. But if I do, I get better. But negative reinforcement does not work with me. It doesn't. Like, you know that if someone's yelling at you to do something, you're more likely to dig your feet in and say, I'm not doing that. That's the same thing with should statements, which is why they should just be outlawed. I just think so.
I agree. That's a very good point. Very good point.
It's so ingrained in us. I shouldn't be eating this donut. I should be going for a walk. I should be doing work right now. Why are we shaming ourselves?
That's a good question. It's a very good question. I don't know. But we do it a lot.
We do.
So what are some of the things from your professional opinion that people can do once they've identified their distortions? And, you know, like we said, there's a lot of them. There's the all or nothing thinking. There's the overgeneralization. There's the disqualifying a positive. There's the mind reading, fortune telling. You mentioned the emotional reasoning. There's the magnification. I mean, there's a list of them. Labeling, personalization. So once I liked what we did when before we got on here, is you gave me a homework and you said, okay, I want you to go through these and I want you to pick two that jump out at you.
Right.
And I like that because it's such a great way to start, because when you read this list, it can seem overwhelming.
Yeah.
You can identify with quite a few of them.
Which is why it was good to look at the two that hit you the hardest. So one of the other things I've done, like in the past when I did counseling, and usually with older kids, is I would make a copy of this list and I would laminate it for them and let them put them in their binders. Or what I've done for myself is I've retyped all of these, because for me, there's something about doing and physically doing it and then printing it out and getting it laminated and putting it on my fridge. That makes me look at it every day, because I took the time to go over there to laminate it. So, and you know, it's on my fridge every day, so I see it. And so, actually, I don't have it on my fridge anymore. I'm telling on myself, because I gave it away to someone who needed it more than I did, which is what I do. But just kind of going through here and finding the ones that work, or that you've done, or that you know you do, and just even knowing that you do this is sometimes a positive thing. Just knowing that you do it, right?
Right.
So the book gives us a couple of examples. So one of the examples they gave is, I really shouldn't have that beer. Well, in other words, he's saying, shame on me for having a beer, right? So this is a should statement. The problem with saying I shouldn't is it sounds moralistic and controlling. Nobody likes moralistic and controlling people. That makes Frank feel rebellious. So that increases his urge to have the beer. This is why when you tell someone who maybe isn't an alcoholic, but is kind of starting down that road, maybe you should cut back. It doesn't work, because shame on you for drinking so much. That's part of the problem. So the other one is emotional reasoning, the example they gave. Life is boring, and I deserve a little fun. You know who else says this? Coors Light. You've earned it. You deserve this. Or the vacation rental places. Oh, you've worked so hard. You deserve this. Okay, maybe you do. But they're pulling on that emotional reasoning. We all do. Frank may deserve a little fun, which is true, but his life won't be much fun if he keeps drinking. So what they're doing is they're maybe pushing a product or whatever, but really, if his life is boring and not fun, then what should Frank do, right? Frank should look at, and I said should, Frank could look at what's going on in his life, where he thinks it needs to be improved, and do that. But if I say, oh, you should do that, well, it's shame on you for doing that. But if he looks at it a different way and says, well, okay, so I feel like my life is boring. But if I look at it a different way and say, okay, because I feel this way, it doesn't necessarily mean my life is boring. But it might mean that I need to try different things than I've been doing, right? Because when we get bored, it's because we're doing the same thing over and over again, right? Mm-hmm. So if we reframe the way he says it, he doesn't feel rebellious. He doesn't feel like he's being judged. He has this opportunity to go, what else can I do? And so the example of that is kind of looking at it from a different perspective. So kind of the example I was going to give earlier about this is text messages, right? We've all gotten a text message that's upset someone, and we didn't mean to upset them, but text messages don't have intonation. They don't have your facial expressions. They don't have the way you verbally meant it. For example, like a friend of mine said okay to me, and I was like, I asked you like 10 questions, like, and then of course there goes the all or nothing thinking and the fortune telling in my head. Oh my God, maybe she's mad at me. Oh, maybe she doesn't want to go with me. Oh gosh, you know, and you start just going down this thing until you call, right? Because you're like, okay, I'm just gonna call because this doesn't sound like this person, because I'm realizing that I'm in my little cognitive distortion. So I call them and they're like, oh, I just said okay because I read it, but I didn't have time to answer your questions, but I didn't want you to think I wasn't answering your questions or didn't get your message. So this, and I loved what you said earlier, Kari, about eating dinner. So can you tell us your dinner story? Because this kind of goes along with this too, because this is us making an assumption about someone else when we don't always know what's going on in their head. So anyway, go ahead. I love that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that in talking with a lot of people that this happens a lot in relationships, no matter if you're married or if it's just a roommate, or it could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever. But making dinner, I'm making dinner for my husband. I work, he works, I get downstairs, I'm making dinner. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to make this, nice dinner. I present it, and he comes downstairs, sits down, he starts eating. I'm looking at him, and he's eating. I'm looking at him. I'm like, so I say, how is it? Oh, it's good. And automatically, I think, oh, okay, he doesn't like it. So my response to that is it too dry? I can make some gravy if you want it to be a little bit more moist. I mean, and how are the vegetables? Are they cooked right? I start automatically giving all these reasons as to why he said good, because I was expecting, oh, this is great. This is so
amazing.
I like this. Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't get that. And then, so I'm going through all these things, and he's like, no, it's good. Okay, well, in my head, I'm thinking, I already heard you say good. It's not what I want to hear. And he continues to eat. And then I shut down because I get mad, because I'm thinking, okay, you don't like my dinner. You're lying to me and not telling me what's wrong with it, because I want to know what's wrong with it so I can make it better next time, because it has to be exceptional. I want it to be great and brilliant and delicious and amazing. And so I start going down this rabbit hole in my head of all these things that I could have done differently with the meal, or what he's thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And in
mind reading.
Exactly. So there's a couple there. And what I'm not taking into consideration is what's going on in his mind. Now, afterwards, it hit me, because something I shared with you is my mom. My mom used to always say there's your side, their side, and then there's the truth. So there's always another side to the story. So when you're talking to someone, they might be in a different place in their mind than you're in. And you're wondering, why isn't this person happy like I am? Get happy. Had a miserable day, So later on, I realized, okay, wait a minute. He's probably had a bad day. But if I was to take the time and kind of stepped back in my mind and just kind of thought about the situation more realistically, I would have probably not gone down that rabbit hole. Probably would have not pissed off.
Well, and the thing is we've probably done that too, where somebody's made of something. I'm like, oh yeah, it's good. But my brain is off on 20 different things I was thinking about that I didn't do that day, that I'm already on some rabbit hole. And you don't realize sometimes how what you say affects other people.
Yeah.
But it's also our job to clarify. It is our job to double check, and their job to be in tune. And sometimes in any relationship, you're not going to be in tune. You're going to be here, they're going to be here, or you're here and they're off somewhere else. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not happy or that they don't love you, but it's life. It does that. So this was kind of our cooking dinner scenario. So this is something I do kind of with my kids. And so this is A, which is for the antecedent. It's what happened. So if we're looking at Kari's situation, she made dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then her thought process, when he said, is it good? Her automatic thought was, oh, it automatically can't be good. Or he would have said it's amazing or it's awesome. Instead, he goes, oh, it's good. Kind of not meaning to be it, but almost kind of a dismissive, oh, it's good, right? And that's kind of how it felt.
Yeah.
But then that, on the last part, this is how you feel, made you feel bad, made you feel unhappy, or, oh my God, I did something wrong, maybe even a little anxious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, if we decrease this whole thing here, so this is the antecedent, this is what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we change the way you think about it, right? This is the part where you think about it. And we say the stuff we were just saying, that maybe they were off in La La Land. Maybe it is actually good, and he just didn't have the bandwidth to say it's amazing, right? Because he doesn't know what we want, right? Because he can't read minds. So then we take this behavior, this B, which is what we're thinking, and we change it. We change it to something else here. We change it to a different thought or a different, because these are thought bubbles, right? We say, well, maybe he was busy. Maybe he actually meant it's good, which is what he said, right?
Yeah.
So say that, and instead of feeling anxious, sad, upset, maybe mad, a little bit annoyed, if you're thinking, oh, he may have had a bad day, oh, and maybe he actually meant it's good, he's just slightly distracted. How does it make you feel? So this is the next thing. How does it make you feel if you have that thought instead of, oh, he doesn't like it, and why didn't I get this response that I was supposed to, right? So
It would make me feel much better, because one thing I think about as you're going through that is his idea of what good is and my idea of what good is could be two different things.
exactly.
You know, I was expecting an excellent or amazing. Well,
Right.
his good could equal to my amazing, you know, and he likes it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I looked at it that way, it would have made me feel better. So when he said good, I'd be like, oh, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you want anything else? You know, it could have really turned the conversation around.
Right. And it would have changed how you felt
Mm-hmm.
just by kind of recognizing these things and these distortions and how we sometimes mind read, just like we do with a text message, right? Just because, I mean, text messages, it happens more, right, than in person conversations. But in person conversations, we can ask for clarification. We can look at their facial expressions. We can maybe even see that, oh, he's distracted or whatever. But so it's kind of interesting how that can all change everything based on perception and what we're seeing. Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you recommend for someone who has not familiar with this type of a process, or they
Well,
want to kind of explore it and see how it can help them to change their mind process?
so I always recommend going to see a counselor or a professional anytime you're starting out with a new program like this. So this is also a self-help book, and a lot of counselors have referred to this book. But you know, you could even read it along with going to a counselor and kind of bring it up in the counseling setting. I always think that counseling is helpful, especially when you're going through a change in your life situation, or you just are feeling down, or you're starting to feel more anxious, or things like that. Because yes, these distortions are real, and yes, we all do them. But I always recommend trying to see a counselor. Just because it is good to have someone else kind of look at things and help you understand things. You know, if you get a good counselor, they're not going to tell you what to do with your life, because they don't live with the consequences or the decisions in your life. You do. And so it's why it's so important that when they give you homework to do, when they kind of say, hey, look, I need you to do this, this, and this, why that's so important, and why they're giving you homework, because they want you to do the work. Because the only way things change is when you do the work. And if that means, you know, putting the cognitive distortions on your refrigerator, or another helpful tool that your counselor gives you to kind of remind you kind of where we're going, you know, that's part of the reason they do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, I am one that I've gone to counseling a couple times. I went to counseling during my divorce. I went to counseling after I got remarried, and you know, a lot of things were going on. And what I found is that, you know, going to a counselor really helps with taking that first step, because you want to understand this, you want to work through it and the process, but sometimes you need that helpful nudge, or that helpful person to listen to you and to walk through the process with you, because I believe that anytime when you're trying to do something new, you need to really create a habit in your life of doing this, like a routine. And one way to get good at it is repetitive and doing it over and over again and for a period of time consistently. And going through that process with a professional can help you to get that routine or that habit in place. And then, like you said, what they do is they want you to do the work so that you can then take it and continue to do it throughout your life.
It's the same as going to a fitness person, you know, or someone that does physical training. They can't do the work for you. They can show you how to do it. They can, you know, there's that thing, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Same with like working out, same with counseling, same with all that. But the reason I suggest, you know, always kind of looking into this as an option, counseling or even just reading as many self-help books as you can, is that it's better to have someone who is a professional who walks you through it, who can help you set up those goals. Just like you don't want to say, oh, well, I'll just do whatever weights this week and whatever weights next week. Well, that doesn't help you build a routine, and it doesn't help you, you know, progress. So, I mean, I agree with you on that, you know, anytime you can see a counselor, it's a good idea. But I just kind of wanted to give you some places to kind of start looking.
Yeah.
And something that's been helpful to me, and it's still to this day helpful. I was really glad when we brought it up that I got to read this stuff again, because I was like, oh God, I've fallen into some habits again. And I mean, we all do it. I went to school for this stuff and I still do it. So nobody's perfect.
No.
Give yourself grace because you need to.
You're a work in progress and continue.
We all are.
Yes, I agree. And I want to thank you so much for introducing me to the book, because I too started reading it, and there were some really great exercises and worksheets in there to work on. And it's a very big book. There's a lot in there, but I am excited to go through it. And it's one of the biggest self-help books I have come across. But I will say that it is one of the most complete, meaning that it touches pretty much everything that I could think of that could happen in someone's, you know, life. It's really amazing. And I do agree, you know, counseling can be perfect for some people, but for those who don't like counseling, you know, going through a process of working with a book like this, especially with how complete it is and how it has exercises and it has areas of holding you accountable, it helps you to be able to start the process yourself, and you can do it for sure. And I want to thank you for bringing this up, because diving into this, like you mentioned, has come to light of like, okay, oh gosh, Kari, you've got to work on this. Oh gosh, Kari, you know, because I've noticed also that there's periods of time in my life where I will go through this, you know, self-care, and I'm gonna read a self-help book, and I'm gonna get, you know, myself better. Go through that. I focus on something, start working on it. Life starts to happen. You know, you start to go off and you get busy and you start doing other things. Yeah. And then you come back and say, okay, there's something else you're going to focus on and do this, right? And what's interesting is that when I was going through these and reading them, I'm like, okay, this is something that now that I know it, as I move forward and I come across different distortions, oh my gosh, my mind is automatically going to go back to this. Automatically. And I love that, because anything that I've done in any type of self-care or self-help, even when I move forward and kind of move away from that focus, it's still here. Yeah. You know? And so you start going through your life and you find yourself, you know, going down that path again. And you're like, wait a minute, I know something. And you start going back through your notes or start going back through books that you've read. And it's an evolution in process. You're going to be going through this your whole life. And that's something that I learned, is that there is no expert. There is no person who knows it all or does it all perfectly. No. There are those that are professionals and have been trained and professionally trained and learned about different types of behaviors. True. But they themselves have concerns and problems and things in their life. And so you said it, no one's perfect. And I think that's the beauty of our world, is that nobody's perfect, nobody's the same, we're all different. But I think that we're all trying to strive for the same thing.
Mm.
I really firmly believe that we're all trying to strive for happiness. And we're all doing our little bit here and there, which is great. But I think that with people like you sharing information like this, being able to share your experiences, your expertise, just really helps individuals who are kind of in that spot of, I'm not sure really what to do, where to go. And even in just talking about some of the distortions that we talked about today, I'm sure there are people that are going to be tuning into this. They're going to go, oh, that's me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's going to help them to realize, ooh, maybe that's something I need to visit and look
Mhm.
at. And now there's a process that I can help myself through. So it's been very, very helpful and very beneficial to go through this. And I know in just our discussions, I've learned something, and I'm going to be working on a few of these.
Yeah, I need to retype my list and put it back on my fridge. It's time.
I love that idea. I do that with my affirmations. And
Mhm.
so I love that idea. So I am going to write this down. I type it out and then laminate it, because I love to laminate things.
I
Uh,
do too. It makes me happy.
I know, right? And I will put it up in my office so that I can see it every day.
Mhm.
So, well, with final words, I want to thank you so much for joining, and again for sharing your expertise, and bringing this to our attention, because there are topics like this that I don't think that are talked about enough. And with everything that's going on in this world, especially in the last 15 months of total just changing our lives, has really caused a lot of people to take a step back and to really think about their lives. And so this is the perfect time to be able to bring up this topic and many topics like it. I
Yeah.
think that it's something that we need to continually talk about, and really make it a part of our lives. So I appreciate you and your time. And I would love to have you back on with another topic. Maybe in the future we can put our heads together and think of something.
I would like that. That would be fun. This has been a lot of fun.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And this is our day with Positive Talk with Kari. I hope you guys have learned something, and taken something away from our discussion. And if you want any more information about the book that Tammy was referring to, the Feeling Good Handbook, as you can see, I got my copy too. Please reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to let you know some of the resources of where you can get it. And also, if you ever want to talk about anything and feel that you just need an ear of someone to listen to you, please reach out. I'll be more than happy to have a discussion, to set up some time, and to be that listener for you. So thank you again for tuning in to Positive Talk with Kari, your total wellness, focusing on your mind, your body, and your soul. Be kind, be safe, and love one another. Thank you so much and have a great day.